It's late and we have tons of stuff to do today. How's everyone? Thank you everyone who came to the thing, and thank you everyone who didn't. I hear the substitute said the B word a lot. Sorry about that. I will not use for substitutions in the future, unless it's got absolutely nothing to do with the B word.
At least it wasn't cuckold porn.
I know, right? Let's draw the line somewhere. And I have some horrible news, and then I have some good news. Which do you want first? I forgot the quizzes on the desk. But the good news, you want to know the good news? I was able to get it on from a transfer from my computer, so I can put it up on the projector, and you can just get.
Are you kidding?
Thank the Lord.
I laugh at myself. So how far are we in? We're three acts into Measure for Measure, right?
Yeah.
What do we think so far? Besides all of the alleged demons. What else do we see? You like it? It's a lot shorter than the tragedies. That's good, right? Sorry. Just pressurized. It hasn't been backwashing yet, so you're okay.
Will Angelo suffer? I really want him to suffer.
Oh, he'll suffer. It's a comedy. Of course he'll suffer. Everybody suffers. So it's one of those great plays where you get to dislike everybody and you know that everybody's going to suffer. Yay, comedy. Anything we want to talk about? Yes, sir.
What does Lucio sound like instructions for Bella to do?
All right, simmer down.
It's,
Yeah.
like breakdown Angelo, which is getting closer and closer. So he's like, first he's like, try touching him, and then he's like, you need to be softer with your voice because he's too cold. I think it's more like seduction, like seduction versus seduction.
Yeah. So it's related to, I think there's a question on there about what does Lucio think Isabella's power is, sort of related to that. Yeah. Yes, sir. Yeah, what was Elbow's wife doing with what's his face? Yeah, so what's Elbow's wife's occupation? Yeah. Yes, sir. Yeah, according to Elbow famously misuses language correctly. He doesn't know what the heck he's talking about, but he's always right. He's one of those characters. So what does respected mean? Yeah.
What is the relationship between Angelo's intentional thoughts and his invention? The relationship between his intentional thoughts and his invention is his imagination.
Is it? Anything else? We're all set.
Who does Angelo blame for the temptation? Himself.
You get 2 points for answering your own question. Yes.
What is Claudio's natural relation to
Your cousin.
Adopted cousin. That's important. Yes, ma'am. Yeah. Anyone wanna field that?
I couldn't hear the question.
It's what do you think Aeschylus asks if practice by the Title School of Council.
Now, what's going on with that? So let's think of the scene. So there's the gentleman and the prostitute and the bod are all taken in, and this is right on the heels of Claudio getting the death penalty for getting his girlfriend pregnant, and so they all get busted for prostitution, right? For prostitution, right? And then so Aeschylus asks the gentleman if he's of a certain income year, and then lets him go. So what's the significance of that, do you think? What do you think that the income might stand for without even doing any historical research or anything? Yeah. Maybe. But how about, like, what happens to Lindsay Lohan when she backs over a baby when she's drunken on coke? And then she doesn't show up to court, and then she doesn't show up to community service, and she doesn't show up to rehab, and then she writes FU on her hands. And how long does she go to jail for?
Days.
Yeah, if that, right? So the amount of, so if you ask, hey, you know, like, are you one of these scumbags, or are you, you know, like, are you a good old boy, a celebrity in the crowd, you know, like of a certain remember, this is a class society, right? Unlike the complete egalitarianism that you and I all experience. Oh wait, sorry, I slipped in a world where Lindsay Lohan didn't exist. But sorry, it's just it's a class marker. Yeah. Anyone want to field that? Yeah, and this is where we're looking for her explanation. We don't need to psychoanalyze or anything. Go ahead. Yes, sir. Yeah. You want to add to that, or? Yes, ma'am. Anyone? So what vice, it's not lust, is Isabella's discourse arousing in Angela? Well, that's what she wants. Yeah. That's what she's going for. All right, well, it's not on the quiz, so I'm going to tell you. It's pride or vanity, to be specific. Because when he starts getting all, when she goes like, oh, that's the spot, you're hitting it, he's coming, or whatever she says. It's when Isabella's like, well, I would give anything for your potency. You know, you're so reasonable and firm and upright and masculine, and potency is the word that she uses, what she'd give for her potency. And then all of a sudden he lends an ear. So, vanity. Okay. So everybody. I do fear to be dreadful. It was my fault that everything fell apart because I was the Duke, and I let everybody just go ahead and party as I open this way. Well, I guess not really open this way. I'm explaining it to the friar I did a bad job. I let everybody leave their phones and their computers out, and now I've lost control of the class. So now, but who said? Who is the speaker then? Okay, yeah, but if we're going for more than one point, who would the speaker be? Okay. And the situation? Was it what I said? Okay. To him went. She will relent. He's coming. I perceive it. Lucio, yeah. So I remember Angelo and Lucio because Lucio, Lucifer, Angelo, angel.
Oh.
So Lucio is the devil. He's sicking Isabella, our innocent little flower, onto Angelo.
Why did he call her a wench
Wench is just a
then?
Oh yeah. Okay. So everybody know this, that wench isn't necessarily an insult. It's just woman. I mean, it's sort of you know like I mean, he's referencing her function as a wench. It's not my lady or pure and pristine. I would remember. Okay. Be that you are, that is a woman. If you be more, you're none. If you be one, as you are well expressed by all external warrant, show it now by putting on the destined livery. This is a horrible seduction, but it's yeah. So what's he kind of saying here?
That's
Yeah, you know, you're supposed to be a woman. You're supposed to be all frail. Come on, get your frail on. Okay, so the situation would be, I guess it's self-evident, and the significance would be. Okay, well, whatever. From Vincentio's, a great name, by the way, Vincentio. The explanation to Friar Thomas, what did Friar Thomas assume was Vincentio's motivation for his bizarre behavior. Yeah, I think so. Something along those, something that because he says, no, I have a more grizzled, wrinkled passion. Yeah. Man, Vincentio is a trip, man. He's got to be. I mean, and you know, this is saying a lot. I mean, for anybody that's read much in Renaissance literature, I think Vincentio is the weirdest cat in Renaissance literature at all ever. Counting, I mean, going back to Chaucer and Boccaccio and Ariosto. And Ariosto once had a guy fly up to the moon on a winged horse to try and get the hero's wits back because when the story was that everybody's wits was in a jar on the moon that went crazy. And this is weirder than that. Vincentio is weirder than that. From going and getting the hero's wits out of a jar on the moon. Okay. Don't say it. Ever. Okay. You go over this one too. Or not. Okay, clay. Boy, the fourth wall is gone. Anybody find clay? You, I guess. Slideshow. From beginning. Okay. I did a PowerPoint because I was trying to get out of doing anything else on Saturday. So let's measure for measure. What is the title? So the title's not usually significant, but here I think it might be significant. Anybody know what measure for measure is from? Something about the Bible? All right, good enough. Anybody know what it means? Well, we'll talk more about it, but
Isn't it from like Matthew or something that the Lord is going to like repay you for whatever you do?
yeah. So measure for measure, sort of, you know, tit for tat. You know, so equal. So and it's about a legal system, right? So why do we have a legal system? Enforce property rights. Absolutely. What else? So we see somebody go and commit an atrocious crime, right? Like what's that? Casey Anthony or whatever. So was anybody rooting for Casey Anthony? All right. So why did we want Casey Anthony to fry?
killed her kid and waited a month for the and then like buried her.
Yeah, so she could, and this is the feeling I got. I mean, I don't know. I didn't really look at the case, but my feeling was the reason I was outraged is I felt like she was inconvenienced from her party lifestyle by this child, and then just sort of got rid of it because it was a pain in the butt, right? So why would we want to punish? Why should we punish this person? Here's the proximate cause, but what's the social justification? I mean, we didn't know the kid. Who cares about the kid? It's not my kid. So why do we want Casey Anthony to be punished? All right, a deterrent to deter other people from doing the same thing. So we've got to publicly whoop her. Yes. Okay, but why? Because closure. All right. So for the victim, I'm going to say retribution, because if you did something wrong, and apparently this is innate. Even before kids are taught this, like when they watch you can do a study and they watch little triangles and squares perform actions, and if the triangle acts like a jerk to the square, then they don't like the triangle anymore. And then like they'll laugh if the triangle falls down. Personally, I think it's that we really just want to punish everybody, and we're just looking for an excuse to do it. And as soon as somebody gives us an excuse, oh yeah. But that's just my personal opinion. I don't think highly of people.
I thought they were loyal to whichever shape they saw first.
You're thinking of imprinting. That's a different study. But you're right. All right, so we've got retribution, deterrence, and then how about just like, would you feel comfortable with Casey Anthony babysitting your child? How about even just living in your apartment complex? Yeah, so it's just we don't want baby killers on the street, right? So it's just kind of a utilitarian function, right? Just get them out, right? So measure for measure is it's an idea of justice. So another famous sort of biblical thing is the eye for an eye thing, right? So I think a lot of us kind of intuitively wouldn't mind at all, like however Casey Anthony killed her baby. The same thing happening to her, right? Doesn't that sound like the thing to do? Just intuitively. Let's put our political correct humanitarian thing aside. Let's just, like, hug our inner beasts. Would anybody not want to see? I would not. I don't think I'd want to see it. I don't know. Maybe who would watch public execution? I wouldn't be able to help it. That's the old anecdote about they had to stop doing public executions on pickpockets because too many people were getting their pockets picked at the public executions. It's true. All right, anywho. So measure for measure. So you picture like the scales of justice, right? And so it's just like you do this much bad, you got to get this much punishment, and then it evens out. All right. And then I like this. You can't really see the cartoon. I couldn't get a better picture of it, but that's this is how I want everyone to picture Angelo. And that's Isabella. Notice the cut of her dress. And then that's Lucio. And yes, people really did wear cod pieces. They didn't have big trucks back then, so they had to do something. So historical notes. This play was probably first performed on December 26, 1604 for King James. Why is December 26th interesting to you, King James? And Christmas, they still did the 12 days of Christmas thing back then, which we all know from our extensive training in comic history is derived from an old pagan holiday where it's just about getting drunk and having sex, right? 12 days of Christmas. So they still had sort of these lax laws. And then the plot of Measure for Measure is don't enforce the moral is don't enforce the laws too strictly, right? You see how that kind of goes into the festivities. Richard Wilson speculates that during the writing of Measure for Measure, the to-be Lord Mayor Sir Thomas Middleton was jailed in disguise to observe and report on prisoners and prison conditions. And King James before coronation was the motif of a king hiding among the commoners to ascertain the fate of his kingdom, would disguise himself and observe the proceedings of law courts and the like. So like undercover boss type thing, right? Except it's undercover king. Wouldn't that be something, smacking somebody? That would have been a good reality show. Could you do that now? Does anybody know what the king looks like? The King of England? If the King of England was in here, would you know who it was? How about the Prince of Wales? Yeah, I think everybody knows. So in 1603, an edict to demolish whorehouses was published, presumably to purge the metropolis in anticipation of James' coronation. James, as we know, wasn't much into the lady whores of the years. All right. And nearby, the first house of correction, Bridewell Prison, was experimenting with rehabilitation techniques based on observation and self-policing. And that's Foucault, for any of you Foucault fans. Anybody a Foucault fan? Sort of? Yeah, Foucault. So it's about, I think Foucault would have liked this play. He would have bought it after the movie. Kidding. So the idea is it was one of the first, the modern instances of the modern house of correction, rather than just kind of the dungeon. And, so prisons turn out that they weren't around for a really long time. Fun fact: guess what happens to crime rates when you have prisons? Nothing. Nothing at all. Nothing at all. That's and it was the first sort of described problem comedy. Nobody really liked it for a long time. John Dryden, who was writing on Winter's Tale, Love's Labor Lost, and Measure for Measure, says it was meanly written and grounded on impossibilities. Hmm? Yeah. And then like read Dryden stuff and look at all of his quote possibilities and meanly written big words coming from the man who wrote All for Love.
What do you mean by
Just crap. Samuel Johnson thought it was so stylistically flawed that it required strong editorial reconstruction. But remember, Samuel Johnson also approved of rewriting King Lear as a comedy. Why would you need to rewrite King Lear as a comedy? Coleridge thought it was painful and its comic scenes disgusting and horrible, and thought the pardon of Angela was unpardonable. For those of you who aren't at the end yet, Angela gets pardoned. Well, sort of. Coleridge wasn't really paying attention. W.W. Lawrence notes the mood of tragedy, a comic ending. Sir William Davenport, in a 1662 production, cut all the comic characters. Similar moves pervade stage history, especially around this time, so they just tried to make it a tragedy. More recently, many have been troubled by the unconvincing marriages, especially the Vincentio Busy, as I affectionately call you. So also at the end, Vincentio proposes to Isabella. And then we know from Garber and those of us who read ahead, what does she say? Nothing. So there's different problems. So it's problem comedy. So we look at the original what's his face? I already forgot his name. Was talking about when these problem comedies are comedies that are centered around a problem. So we've got the Vienna problem, and I listed the characters associated with the Vienna problem. Can somebody and also the one quotation mark just to keep people on their toes for this unbalanced the Vienna problem. See, it's a meta text. Text about the text. So can anybody talk about what the Vienna problem might be? Yeah. Yeah, just a lot of particularly what sort of misbehavior are they looting? Lechery. What's lechery? I bet somebody knows. This isn't one of those fun facts. Actually, what it really means is the killing of aardvarks. I'm not even. All right, you all know. Nobody wants to talk about lechery. Fornication. Anyone know what fornication is? All right. It's lechery and unregulated fornication. Why are we so upset about unregulated fornication, I wonder?
Regulated sex.
The institution of marriage, what we don't want is just everybody going around doing what they want. I mean, I do. I don't know about you guys. Like, I hate like public displays of affection, this sort of thing. No, this needs to all be regulated. Take it somewhere else. No, I was in no. Sexual excess, ineffective and unenforced prohibition. So there's a possibly not unrelated, something that you'll find in a lot of movies and literature is think Wes Anderson movies, right? So when there's a problem with the father figure, then incest becomes sort of a bubbling issue. And so when you have a lack of familial relations, as in this play, I mean, can you think of any familial relations? Yeah. Yeah. Any others? Adopted cousins, right? But anybody's dad there, anybody's mom there, kids. This is kind of a new thing, right? And so there's remember the kind of incest that Isabella talked about in her exchanging the proposition to exchange her chastity for Claudio's life, and then she talks about the dead father, and what is her dead father's message to her that she hears from the grave? It was a reading question. There's also a question on the Garber quiz, I think. Yeah, no. That was her, when her father speaks to her, it's no, I will not. Another kind of incest, the spiritual father Vincentio wanting to marry Isabella. He very explicitly defines his relationship to her in terms of, I'm your father, now I'll be your prince. Or was your father, now I'll be your prince. Ew. Yet another kind of incest, suppressed by Vincentio and disrupting Izzy and Claudio's relationship, question mark. So what's the central sort of loving couple that we get in this play? Who's the two people that have the relationship that sort of, yeah, but so they would be the romantic couple. How much do we see of their shenanigans? So where's the focus? What's the central couple? Yeah, Claudio and Isabella, right? And so this was also a stock kind of romance tale of that would happen that came up, especially in folk stories, where somebody like a soldier is in trouble or being blackmailed or something by a commanding officer, and he wants to sleep with the soldier's wife, and sometimes the soldier's wife goes and sleeps with them without anybody knowing, and that's like a thing. And sometimes she tells him, and it becomes a big issue, and this big ethical dilemma of, is it okay to save your husband's life if requiring that would mean that you would have to sleep with the body. And remember Amelia talked about this scenario in Othello. Remember that? When she's like, I wouldn't, what was her name, Desdemona, something like that? She said, I wouldn't commit adultery for the world. And Amelia says, the world's a big thing, right? So less common was this idea of somebody was going to sleep with your sister to get you free. So it's sort of a not completely unprecedented, but sort of unique twist. And also the Vienna problem is hypocrisy and uneven enforcement. There's the whorehouses in the suburbs torn down, but not in the city. So you start understanding that there's probably some sort of tax thing where, it's not a matter of wanting to get rid of the whorehouses, it's getting them under more control. And you, of course, all, I'm sure, know that until relatively recently, the Catholic Church had whorehouses in Italy to raise revenue and to control and it's not something limited to the Catholic Church. I don't think. I think because it was falling out of favor when Protestants started taking over countries. So I think nobody was doing it then, but I imagine they probably would have. The Claudio problem. So, as our old friend Harry Berger points out, that he's not technically being hung for fornication, but because we talked about the uneven enforcement, because like the whores and the bawds and the johns don't really get punished, but it's the result of a kind of deadbeat dad law, getting somebody pregnant without marrying them, and then we find out that that's really what bothers Vincentio in the end too. So the problem that the Duke has is how to get Claudio off the hook without compromising the whole legal apparatus. Don't know what that question mark's doing there, but it looks pretty. Escalus even seems to think that Claudio's sacrifice is necessary to restore the potency of the law that is variously referred to as a scarecrow and mocked rod of a lax father. Mocked rod. So Claudio's problem is, for Angelo, a way of containing Vienna problem, but perhaps this connection is faulty. So it's just that he's a scapegoat, right? So it's like, wow, if this can happen to Claudio, what did happen? So this goes into our what of the three reasons for logic does this fall into? Deterrent, yeah. And then there's the Angelo problem. So usually when people read this, normally they're just like, oh, this is what happens if you just give somebody power and power corrupts. But then you start wondering, did Vincentio set him up? Let's take a preliminary vote. Is absolute power corrupts absolutely? Set up by Vincentio. All right. He's initially portrayed as inhuman. He pees icicles according to Lucio, right? Something like that. It was something like that, wasn't it? He mixed water and ice cubes or something. That'd be interesting. Yeah, be handy in the summer here. Is the naturalness of sexual depravity somehow championed by his fall? Pompey jokes that the strict enforcement of Angelo's laws would require the gelding and spaying of Vienna. How do we feel about it? Do we think that prostitutes or people that will fulfill a prostitute-like function are necessary for a smooth workings of humanity? Anyone want to defend that? Yeah, well, we're actually, the United States is exceptional when it comes to this. I mean, there's like, so in London, you can, it's totally fine. It's like Las Vegas law. Well, I guess Las Vegas proper, you can't do it. It's like Reno laws where you can be a call girl, you can exchange money for sex, but you can't bother people on the streets. Stop regulation. Take it to a room. Take it to a room. Go on Grindr or whatever. There's giggles from the few people that know what Grindr are. But this idea that it's just natural, like no matter what, like people are going to figure out a way to have sex, and if you don't have prostitutes, then people will just lose their minds and explode on the street or something. I guess I don't know. Do you think that would happen? I mean, I don't know. It wasn't at the turn of the century, something like 90% of men lost their virginity to a prostitute. Turn of the 19th to 20th century. Not this last century. I don't know what it is. My mom would say that everyone loses their virginity to a prostitute. Sorry, Mom. No? Oh, do share. It's a class discourse. Yeah. Miracle Mile. Yeah, it's and gelding and spaying, of course, means, yeah. The term precise in the early 17th century and beyond to describe the Puritans, like what we call Puritans now. Just what do you think of when you think of a Puritan?
Someone who doesn't have recreational sex, so does hard work.
Yeah. So, good, hardworking people that you don't want at parties. So that's what precise would be like when we say that somebody's puritanical here. That's what precise meant then. And since Puritans were anti-theater, it's possible that Shakespeare is critiquing them via Angelo, maybe. That question mark was intentional. The Isabella problem. Is Isabella a sexually anorexic masochist? Yes, truly, I speak not as desiring more, but rather wishing more strict restraint. So you've got these kind of, and I've seen Measure for Measure in probably 5 different performances, and 3 of them were more sort of this one, and 2 of them were more sort of that one. And it works both ways. I think that, to me, like, this is the truth of that. That's the sort of bringing it down. Yeah.
Well, isn't there like isn't like psychological kind of sublimation where you like take your sexual energy and desires and you convert it into doing some kind of work or art or I guess for her.
Yeah, it's a good. Freud certainly thought that. And, So if you didn't hear Cliff, the idea is that that restraining the sexual impulse. So for Freud, it was everything that everyone does is redirected libido. We kind of have to, knowing what we know about the different affects and dopamine and everything, we know that probably wasn't quite the whole story, but it seems like a. Anybody know about Saint Teresa de Avila? You've seen the statue of her. So she's this mystic, and she was sort of Isabella-esque. She was very strict and wrote these incredible mystical texts. But when you read it, it reads like porn, and she's getting thrust all the way through with Michael's golden radiant shaft, and which triggered in her ecstasies that were beyond any. But she's just writing mysticism, and she's very chaste. But it looks like if you want to be all Freudian about it, it looks like that she's converted mysticism into this hypersexual, and definitely with the language and Michael's shimmering goldenrod and stuff, so yeah. It's a fun read for those of you that are into mysticism, different than the variety that David Newton. All right. So people have different takes on Isabella. One is that she's not really, because she speaks very sexily, sexy-ishly. There's a lot of innuendo in her speech, but as anybody that had this happen to, a lot of speech kind of there's like a little switch that can get flipped, and then all of a sudden the whole discourse that you're having just gets this really sounds like everything's innuendo. Like say you're watching a football game, right? And so you're just watching it for blah blah blah, like you're a bunch of guys, but then somebody points something out, and then all of a sudden somebody shoots the A gap and sacks the quarterback, and he's split wide to the tight end, and then all of a sudden the whole everything that the announcer says just becomes this really silly sex joke about sticking it to the quarterback and this sort of thing. So that would be an example of sort of being unwillingly undermined by intentional erotics of discourse. So we see Isabella, in this good homosocial triangulation between Lucio and Angelo, right? And she's saying all this stuff that's being read by Lucio initially. It's like, there it is, yeah, that's going to get him aroused. And then Angelo is acting like he doesn't hear it, but it obviously works on him in the way of that. And then so the possibility is Isabella's just an idiot, and she just does not know that that's what her language is doing. It's possible. So the other one is that she knows her powers, and we'll look at her defense of Angelo later, and that maybe she does know what she's doing, and she's playing dumb. less of a nun and more of a dominatrix. And then you know she's willing to let her brother die to preserve her virginity. Right? And this is interesting. Just from the people I've polled informally, there's a strict division about you know. Like, what do you think? Is everybody okay with that? Do you think that which is more important? You know, Claudio's head or Isabella's maybe head? Right. So, you'd defend her then? You're indifferent? Yeah.
I think what's important to keep in mind is it's constantly referred to as sex between Isabella and Angela, but in truth, she's getting closer to her age grade. And so it's a very big thing that she's losing her.
And this has been the difference of my informal. I mean, some people are like, no, you can't. You know, and some people are just like, it's just sex. And I was expecting more of a gendered thing that like more women would agree with you, but I think I didn't really get that. It just seems like some people are just like, of course you shouldn't, and some people are like, of course you should. So I don't know. Anyone want to take the third position and articulate a get over yourself, just have sex with them argument? No, I don't. Okay. And then, you know, how are we supposed to read the ending? And we'll get to that. And then the Vincentio problem. The fantastical Duke of Dark Corners, as Lucio calls him. And yeah, so how do we read? I mean, does anybody think that he's really just sort of like a wise, benevolent figure? This is how he was read for a long time. Allegedly, at least by people who were writing things down about it.
I don't think he's dumb, but I also don't think he's the wisest person.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't know. So, anyone else want to give an initial take? Anybody really like him? I do. I think he's great. Anybody really dislike him? A lot of indifference. Okay, fair enough. Perverse? Can I get votes on perverse? Nobody thinks he's perverse? I think he's perverse.
I think that if he was in Isabella's position, like theoretically, that he would have sex with Angela, just because of the fact that he is going about this in such a roundabout way to preserve his own image instead of owning up to how he's like done wrong society by non-negotiable laws. He's not owning up to it. He's not doing the virtuous thing, whatever. He's just kind of doing these political maneuvers and setting someone else to take the blame. So I think that he would kind of make that morals aren't really that important to him.
Yeah. I would extend that, and I would say that I think he would have sex with Angela as is. But I mean, if it could get him something. Anybody think he's incompetent? I mean, Vienna is out of control, and it was under his watch. And yeah.
I think he kind of looks at that way. He kind of understands it.
Yeah.
He wants to go in his bag so he can go and be part of the fun now.
Right.
Have more fun actually causing chaos instead of just letting it happen.
Absolutely, and then so we get to we're back to Foucault, right? Of the not only just to contain the dysfunction in a society, but to produce it. And because if you produce the transgressions in the society, so if you're secretly you know I don't know, shipping cocaine to ghettos as was supposedly happening in the 80s, or you know allowing a prostitution just to exist, then you justify your police state because you've got so much dysfunction. So like doing things like spying on the people and going around and having a police force and sort of you know arbitrarily exercising your power becomes justified. Right? I mean, has anybody like had their apartment like a series of stolen automobiles at their apartment complex, or you know like lived in a neighborhood that had a rash of break-ins, and then all of a sudden you're like okay with cops being all over the place. You know. But then like if you're just partying and you're like really not okay with cops being all over the place. Nobody? Okay. And then so we think of the other sort of theories of sovereignty as expressed by Theseus. Henry IV, I think, comes up a lot, particularly Hal, about being mysterious and appearing and staging your appearance and like really messing with people's subconscious motivations on how where your power comes from. So and then this is a popular reading, is that he's like Prospero from The Tempest, or Shakespeare. He orchestrates the whole thing. And but for what? Entertainment, correction, genuine concern for Vienna. Yeah, there's a scene, the first comic scene with Lucio and the other whoremongers, where Lucio thinks that the Duke's gone because there's this civil war about to happen, and all the Dukes need to be there to see if they're going to keep their. So we've got like a very like Henry IV type situation with this civil war that's about to go over, and the Dukes are all going to meet to decide whether they're going to turn against the king. And where's Vincentio? Is this incompetence? All right. So say World War III is about to go off, and then so all of the whatever the powers on the side would be, I guess it would probably be like Western Europe against Islam, basically, right? So all the powers of Western Europe and the United States are all meeting, and then you find out that Obama is dressing up in drag and like partying in Las Vegas and like screwing with people while World War III is about to happen.
Well, it could be an intelligent movie maybe because he doesn't have to say that he's on one side or another. He can just be on the winning side or whatever.
Yeah, so maybe he's being very extra savvy. Anybody buy that? I think it's a brilliant argument, but I don't buy it at all. Richard Wheeler, the same guy that hasn't done much in the world of Shakespeare, but I think he wrote a pretty good article. You should have read that instead of the crappy one that we're reading. Oh wait, maybe I think we're reading. I forget. Anyway, he thinks that the Duke is a critical self-examination on Shakespeare's part, and Shakespeare's questioning his own motives of why am I writing these plays, and what good am I doing in the world with it, or something. It was, Shakespeare's last proper comedy. So in the same way that Macbeth was the last proper tragedy, and you kind of saw Shakespeare run out of tragic steam, and it sort of turns into farce. You kind of feel like that opposite's happening with Shakespeare's comedies in this play. It's just like all of the comic trappings are just sort of grinding to a halt. Fundamentally incompetent. We talked about this, I guess. All right, so this is a crazy but long-standing and sort of important idea. So in this reading, it's just all a big allegory, right? And Lucio really is Lucifer, and Angelo really is the angel in the fallen world, and then the marriage of Izzy and Duke is the allegory of mercy and purity or something, right? So at the end, if they get married, then you overlook the fact that like it's a completely crazy and stupid marriage, and it's never going to work. But allegorically, like the Duke, who's the embodiment of mercy, and Isabella, who's the embodiment of purity, come together, and you've got this Neoplatonic union, and the whole world comes together in delights. Yes, sir?
Well, maybe that's giving them too much credit. Maybe it's more like stupidity and innocence or something.
All right, now, so here we go. Like, creepiness and prudery together at last. Or the utopian vision of for every sadist a masochist. Who knows? Can we guess how Crumbo feels about allegorical readings of this type? I mean, it's probably there. I mean, our left brain interpreters can construct all kinds of wacky stuff out of the most disparate of. So it's like from the dreams, right? So for every bush of bear, so symbol is anyway. You can symbolize anything. Make a morality play out of like I don't know what's a popular TV show. Keeping Up with the Kardashians. I think that actually is a morality. So did Kanye dump Kim? I hope so. Northwest. He wants to name him North. Kanye wants to name him North.
She keeps her last name.
You got to take a test and all this stuff to get a driver's license, but you can just have a kid. Amazing.
What about the king? So King James,
Yeah.
he wrote that Bible. Did he edit the Bible?
No, he subsidized it, but he didn't really.
Doesn't that speak in a sort of devotion to that whole
Yeah.
aspect of it?
So this is important. So the James and James's James's ostensible relationship with the church. King James Bible we've all heard of, right? And but we also know that James was a flamboyant character that was more known for his parties and his sense of fashion than any political savvy per se. And this sort of thing, and sort of things like dressing up and going amongst the people. This is a very different than old Bessie would have done, right? Can you imagine old Bessie like putting on some high heels and a leather mini skirt and going out amongst the people? Elizabeth? That would be awesome. There's an idea for an HBO miniseries. But yeah, so I think maybe that might be a good way to look at Vincentio's relationship with austerity and really kind of proving that he talks about his the dribbling dart passage about his complete bosom that can't be penetrated, right? He talked about the dribbling dart passage, right? Yeah, so he's got the completely upright. And remember our fear of placidity discussion about Freud and the upright and rigid, like guys that are scared that if they engage in sexual, of course we remember this, the precious bodily fluids thing, right? Okay, see, everybody remembers the precious bodily fluids thing, right? And I'd do nothing without Kubrick. So Angelo obviously is very much into the precious bodily fluids thing, but maybe Vincentio even more so, right? And then the other idea is that he's a Machiavellian mastermind, replacing outmoded medieval theater of torture, here we go with Foucault again, with more properly panopticon surveillance. Anyone know what the panopticon is? Yes. Does anyone not? Okay, so it was an idea put forth by Bentham, Jeremy Bentham, and beloved by Foucault. And the idea of the panopticon was you have a prison, it's just a big cylinder, and then all the cells just go around. And then you got a tower in the middle, and then you can't see into the tower. You have somebody that can see all the different cells, and they're all open cells, so everybody has to behave. But then the idea is that eventually nobody really needs to be back there, because the problem with this is nobody watches him. And so you don't really need anybody, then you need everybody just assuming that you're being watched. And then so it internalizes so Vincentio appearing out and so you never know where he's at, then the population starts just assuming that everything that they're doing is being watched. Kind of like cameras everywhere. And so you just assume that you're being watched all the time, so you never speed. You assume as soon as you speed, you're going to get a ticket. And then, that's when you know that they've taken your soul, like they've done with you in speeding. So, so for Foucault, this is a very modern idea that's changing from so the theater of torture was in Foucault's famous example. What they would do is, so a regicide was considered the worst possible crime you could do, so he describes in detail, it's actually a pretty interesting read. He describes in detail the 4 days of torture that they do for someone that tried to kill the king. And like you get red hot pincers, and like the flutes through the skin, pull out the liver, and then like you pour hot sauce on them, and this sort of thing. I don't think we really pour hot sauce on them, but that would be awesome. But so yeah, so that was how they used to then. It used to be terror, but then that stopped working because we talked about like how the pickpockets would be working and at the public hands and pickpockets. So, but this was supposedly a more effective thing. We might talk more about that. Voyeuristic sadist. The punishments are too mildly cruel. We'll get to this at the end more. I've got to give you your quizzes back because I am not carrying them around anymore. We will continue this nonsense on Wednesday.